In 1716, a Scottish gambler named John Law had an idea. He wanted to make a ton of money, and he thought the best way to do it was to convince the French government to let him start a bank that printed paper money. Now, this seems totally normal today, but back then it was totally revolutionary. Most transactions were still done with gold and silver. Paper money was practically unheard of. But John Law was a gambler, so he was willing to take the risk. And boy, did it pay off. The paper money that his bank issued caused the French economy to boom. At least it seemed to. But John Law wasn't done. He wanted more. So he started a second company, the Mississippi Company, which sold shares of stock backed by nothing but hype. That doesn't sound like a great investment, but people loved it anyway. They poured money into the company and the stock price soared. France was euphoric. Everyone was making a fortune. Or at least they seemed to be, because in 1720, the bubble burst. People lost fortunes. Riots broke out in the streets. And John Law? Well, he fled the country and he was never punished. Now, that doesn't sound like a great story, but stick with me because it gets better. Because this story isn't just some random historical anecdote, it's actually the origin story of modern banking and paper money. See, before 1716, most European countries didn't have central banks. They didn't have the power to print money. So, when they needed cash, they turned to private bankers like John Law, who basically said, "Hey, don't worry, I've got you covered." Except there was a catch. The money that Law handed out wasn't backed by anything. It was just, "Trust me, bro," which isn't exactly a great foundation for an economic system. But desperate times call for desperate measures. And over the next few decades, things got a lot less desperate. In 1844, for example, the Bank of England started issuing banknotes that were backed by gold. And in the early 1900s, most industrialized countries followed suit. They created central banks that could print paper money that was actually backed by precious metals. It seemed like a great system. Paper money that was always redeemable for gold or silver. What could go wrong? Well, eventually, almost everything. To learn more about why, check out episode 33 of Money, The True Story, which breaks down exactly how Law's wild gambit changed the world, whether we should trust banks, and why paper money is more illusion than substance. I'll see you there.